The transportation and logistics industry has its own set of challenges. In the hot seat, industry thought leaders take on M&A and what's driving the future of transportation and logistics. Are you ready for the hot seat?
Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Got a special client edition today here in the hot seat. Actually, a special 2-for-1 client edition. With me in the hot seat, we have Gloria Hudson and Zach Aufmann, former business owners and partners at Interstate Transport. Zach, Gloria, welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, before we heat things up, this is a very interesting conversation. We're a couple years removed from your transaction. A lot of stuff has happened, and I can't wait to unpack it all. But for context, just tell, Gloria, maybe you just do it for the both of you for this. Just tell us a little bit about the company that you exited with Interstate Transport.
Sure. So Interstate Transport was a third-party logistics provider, primarily in the food space. We got our start, actually, I was in horticulture prior. I had another company called Interstate Plant and Tree. We were wholesalers of plant products that went into garden centers. And we landed a couple of big customers with some big box retailers. And that's when suddenly I had to learn transportation very fast because I knew a lot about horticulture and I didn't know anything about transportation. So I had this great product. I had these great customers and I had to get it there, on time, in temp, and, back when there was no TMSs. So, that was the kind of start of Interstate Transport is, okay, well, how do we get this product that I need to these customers? So it's sort of evolved from there. I sold the first company, Interstate Plant and Tree, to John Deere Landscapes. They were in the business of just consolidating everything that a landscape company would need. And so that was just kind of my opening to say, okay, it's time to go ahead and do Interstate Transport full time, which I did. And so in the very beginning, the first customers, I think it's okay to say who customers were, was Home Depot and John Deere. So two huge, Fortune 500 companies. And they just needed transportation for landscape products. But that's all I knew. I didn't know anything about food transportation. So about a year into business, I met Zach, along with some other associates that had been through, Zach can tell you a little bit more, through training at C.H. Robinson, and they were looking for positions. And I met Zach, and, Interstate Transport was born, and we were ready to do all other types of freight. So
I love it. So Zach, add to that a little bit. We got a little bit of a unique situation. Gloria is the founder. You kind of came on, became a minority shareholder later. Tell us about your role and what was your day-to-day, what that looked like as part of Interstate Transport.
Yeah. So it all started back in Chicago, actually. Well, after I graduated from Western Illinois, I did my internship at Walt Disney World. So kind of got the Florida bug. When I moved back from Florida to Chicago, I went from like 70 degrees to, I think it was like -10. And I posted my resume up literally that same day. The next day, C.H. Robinson actually reached out to me and said, we'd love to have an interview. And I knew nothing about transportation. That was something brand new to me, wasn't touched on in college, and it wasn't really something that a lot of people did back then. So I signed on with C.H. Robinson. I moved to Tampa 7 days later after my move back date from Orlando. And I started with C.H. Robinson, and I was there for a year and a half. I got the best crash course in logistics I could have ever possibly gotten. Handled big accounts like Tropicana and Minute Maid. And then, as Gloria notated, I met Gloria. We had a conversation. We had multiple conversations. And she's like, hey, listen, I want to build a transportation business around all of these plants that we have. So it worked great for us. We had all this outbound Florida freight with all the horticulture leaving the state of Florida. And then it was the job of myself and a couple others to go out and then find food customers to bring capacity back. So it was like shooting fish in a barrel. It was a marriage made of 21 years, Gloria.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the rest is, we can kind of touch on as the interview goes.
No, and I love that. So you guys form a wonderful partnership, highly productive. At what point did you all begin to have discussions around a possible exit of the company?
I guess I can take that one. I think we were, over that time of 20 years, we learned a lot, the good and the bad. but we were very metrics driven. We're always watching the data, and we're at a place where, after COVID, things were pretty unpredictable in the freight market, and we'd seen that before. And so I think we just decided that, we're obviously at a peak, as a lot of other people were, and we just knew that, the margins we had maybe weren't going to be sustainable forever. And we were at a good place where we had some employees too that had been really long tenured with us, that we felt like, they didn't really have any upward mobility, because it was really just us. Even though we were expanding, we wanted to give them more opportunity also. So that's when we went looking. We just thought, okay, we need to find another company, in the transportation space, not necessarily an investor, and go ahead and see what we might be able to do.
No, I love the consideration about trying to give your employees some additional mobility, and obviously as part of that, you ultimately chose to hire Tenney Group. What was that process? How did you ultimately land on hiring our firm?
I think we talked about this several times, Zach and I did. So we had a private equity investor about, I guess, in like 2010 or so, for a few years. So we had been through a process with an investment banker before, but they were looking for all different types of buyers, mostly like strategic and financial. And this time we just felt like, no, we want to stay with a strategic buyer, in the transportation space. We want someone who really understands transportation. So I don't think we'd actually met in person, but we'd heard about your group a few times at different conferences and things, and just felt like it was a good fit. And then we had a call with Ashesh on your team, and he was fantastic, but it's a lot of ease that it was going to go well. And so we just proceeded forward.
I love that.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is, with running the business on the day-to-day, Gloria and I both were at a point to where we did not want to kill ourselves trying to do both, right? Because it is an extensive process. So her and I did have discussions to say it is worth our time, effort, and energy to have some help. And it definitely paid off.
Well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the way that you thought about the priorities of that, because one of the things that had a tremendous influence on the way that buyers and the ultimate buyer got comfortable with the deal and got excited about it was just the quality of the data management and the reporting that you guys had already put in place moving forward. And you said, Gloria, like, hey, we were very data driven, and that obviously was on display during our process. So I appreciate the fact that you guys made a conscious decision that, hey, we're going to control what we control. This is where we're going to win. And then we're going to count on somebody else to actually go manage the process. We're not going to add that to our plate. And obviously that paid off. But I do, as we've talked about, I think the hot seat's a great resource for business owners who may sell down the road. But a lot of folks are not, yet making those decisions, and they're not managing that data to the level that you guys were at this point. So what would be a few steps that they could take to start prepping their business for sale, and to start taking more direct control over how a future buyer is going to be evaluating their financials and appreciating them?
Yeah, I think it goes back to when we initially were kind of, we each know separate businesses, but we think together we need to decide what our roles were in the company. And I think that's really big for a lot of companies, is that, to be entrepreneurial, it takes a lot, right? And usually that person is somebody who, may have a skill set that's great in sales or great in operations. And then, they may not have all the back office pieces. And that's something Zach and I really sat down with, and actually an outside consultant at the time, and said, okay, what are the parts that each of you do best? And then who's going to fill in the other pieces? And I think that helped us in our hiring to find the other pieces of the puzzle that we needed, so that we had this company that was kind of ready. So when we sat down with potential acquirers, it wasn't just Zach and Gloria. It was a team of people who really understood, what the business did, how to keep it running. And then the KPIs around, what each department was responsible for, how it was measured, how often it was measured. And we built it from there. And I think when other companies came to talk to us, they could see that this wasn't just going to be us. There was a lot of longevity there.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is we thought it was very important, because we were going to exit, to where the company itself could stand without Zach and without Gloria.
Right.
So it took us a couple of years to get through that process, and it was a lot of work, and it was a big commitment, because it is very painful to start. But one of the things was, stay the course. And once we do exit, the company would then be able to, or we could sell the company being able to run with the house. Because a lot of small entrepreneurs or smaller type brokerage company, a lot of it relies on the owners, and you have to change that narrative. It's the company, not the owners. And I think that was the best thing we ever did.
No, that's great advice. Great advice. All right, so Gloria and Zach, I'm really curious just about the partnership dynamic. You guys have had a successful partnership for 2 decades, and that's not easy, especially as you start thinking about exiting, keeping your strategic objectives aligned. Had different seasons of life, different goals. What were some of the keys to your successful partnership over those 2 decades?
I think the biggest thing was, oh, yeah, me go first. Yeah, it's okay. I'll go first, but then actually, this is what I'm going to talk about. Is how Zach normally does go first as the salesperson, even though he was, the vice president, I was the president. He's more the salesperson and marketing person. I was more in the background, just with the strategy and the data. So go ahead, Zach. You can talk about that because it is the way it went.
Yeah, the other reason why I was going to start was because I'll start with, well, from my point of view, I had a lot to learn, and Gloria was my mentor. She was my mentor and still is today. So I want to go on record to say that I was the gas pedal and she was the brake. So I was driving sales. I was driving people's performance. I was driving as much profitability and revenue we could possibly get to the door. And I think the reason our relationship lasted so long and it went as well as it did is because Gloria then was the brake. She would back me down. She would say, hey, listen, we have to think about this. There has to be a process written first before we go out and do these things. So I think the relationship was, one, me knowing my strengths, Gloria, of course, knowing her strengths, and then her and I able to communicate properly. We don't let emotion get involved when it comes to business. It's business. It's a decision. We make that decision. We stuck together for 20 plus years. And I think that's really what helped us the entire time.
Gloria, what would you add to that? Or maybe subtract?
I wouldn't subtract anything. No, I think that was exactly it. I would say, yeah, in the transportation business, there's so much liability and risk. And it takes so much to be in front of a large customers like the ones that we had. Once you get to that level and you can meet all their criteria, that's where I would just say, Zach, if we can't always roll the dice, right? And when we didn't, I think as Interstate, we were very careful with what we did, how we did it. Like he said, the processes and things. We had extremely low claim ratios, things like that really, because for all the sales you can do, if you lose somebody over, a bad claim or something, it just, it would tarnish your relationship. So I think toward the end, it was funny how I noticed Zach actually started putting the brakes on himself too, because he was starting to realize, wow, we built something really great here. Yeah, we don't want, one unfortunate accident to cause us a problem.
I think that's great advice right there. So let's transition to the actual sale process itself. You hire a Tenny Group. We begin the process. What are a few takeaways that you might share with business owners who are looking at a future sale? What were some lessons that you could pass along to them that were that you took away from the process?
Sure. Well, I think the biggest thing is just to have your house in order before you get to that point. I think a lot of people, are very focused on I think how they're growing their business and not necessarily how they're sustaining the foundation of what they built. So I think that was the biggest thing for us was, like I said, having been through that with another investor in the past, it was just, the cleaner, neater you can be, have the data that tells the story you're telling. That was really big for us. But go ahead, Say.
And one thing I learned through that process, which I'm learning through some of the processes that we're currently, going after, is make sure you don't drive any conversations with feelings. It's purely what do the numbers and what is your performance as a company telling the people trying to buy your business. No matter how you feel, no matter what you think, it is all based on numbers. So one thing Gloria did fantastic fashion was we will as this day the first person walked through the door and the information and the data was already there. All we had to do was hit the go button and it would get sent to them. We weren't creating it just in time. It was something we had thought about. It was something that, through the direction of others and the Tenney Group, while or before the process started, we were ready. And if you're not ready and you think you're just going to kind of go through it, you're going to make life that much harder. Spencer, you're frozen again.
All right, hang tight, y'all.
There you go.
Okay, now you're back.
There we go. All right, I think we're getting all that. I'm not sure what's happening here, but
Okay.
so let's talk about what's next, guys. You do a transaction with Dupré. There's a stay on period for a little while, which you guys, to my knowledge, I think you guys have satisfied that. What's next for you guys? What are you thinking about in this next adventure?
You go ahead, carry Zach.
Come on, Zach, get in there.
Yeah, for sure. So, we actually had this conversation yesterday, Gloria and I. So, still touch base literally every day. Now, it might not be through a phone call, but it is still through some type of communication every single day. So, we both realize and understand, especially me over the last couple months, I don't want to go back as just a regular employee, I don't believe. I do feel that with what I've gone through in the 20 plus years of me being in the industry, we could help companies get ready for this process. Gloria will kind of go into a little bit more detail as to what that looks like and, the vision that we both have there. But I think that's the most important thing, is just knowing you as a person, and we'll take your time and what you want to get yourself into, build a structure behind it. And again, we're going to just kind of go at this again and see where the chips fall. So Gloria has a bunch she can add to that.
Yeah, let's hear about it.
Yeah. So I think we both feel like, from what we've learned through building a business, all the ups and downs, transportation is extremely complicated. I was in Young Presidents Organization, YPO, and I would tell people what my business was, and they would just say, wow, there's just so much risk and so many dollars at stake. And I think, why didn't I just, go pick something easier that was 9 to 5? This is, 24/7 weekends. It's everything, right? And I guess, but through that, we learned, how to run a very tight ship. So I think we feel like, there's a lot of businesses that could probably use a little bit of help, whether they're, starting out and they haven't really built their kind of vision and values and the foundation of getting a business going, or whether there's somebody that might be looking for an exit or transition, and they just don't really know what that is. So I don't know if you come across, companies that come to you, Spencer, and they have the idea that they want to sell, but they're maybe just not ready or don't really know what needs to be put into place to be ready for a potential acquirer to come in. And I think that's our next step. So we've talked about being business consultants. I think it's, I like the term business advisor. I don't want to go in and tell an entrepreneur, how to do something differently. We want to, take what they have and build on that, because I think there's a lot of respect goes out to somebody that's able to build a company. And if you've done that and you're still in business, you're doing something right. You might just need some help tweaking a few things. So, one of the names we came up with was RPM Business Advisors. It's all about revenue, profit, and margin, RPM. So we feel like that's something that a lot of people don't really have those metrics maybe set up. Maybe they know what they are, maybe they don't, maybe they're not measuring them every day, every week, every month. But, we're a big fan of the Rockefeller habits. I don't know if you've heard of that, but, it's if you build a business around something and then you have the accountability around the metrics, you'll be able to know when you're succeeding or not. So I think that's something we'd really like to teach, others if they're open to it. Come to somebody like you and ultimately be ready to sell when it's time to sell.
I love that. RPM. That's got to get right to it, guys. That's got to get right to it. And listen, and obviously you guys have lived it out. You've done, you've done it. You put things in practice. You've executed on it, had a great transaction. And obviously we're delighted and honored that you allowed us to be a part of that process. And so one last question for you both as we wrap things up here. So I'm curious, young Zach, young Gloria, you never get wind of the transportation logistics space. What other career might have found you along the way had you not found yourself in logistics?
So originally, I wanted to go into the hotel management.
Nice.
I wanted to be the guy, like if you're walking into Las Vegas and, you know, a very heavy poker player or some type of gambler comes to the hotel, that I'm running the entire hotel. I'm the guy that goes out, shakes his hand, makes sure everything from a customer service standpoint, everything's ready. So I think I was always like a glutton for punishment when it came to wanting to deal with a lot of outside factors through people. In whatever industry that found me in, transportation, I literally I stumbled on it. I didn't have, I didn't have much knowledge when it came to what transportation was or what it wasn't. So it was almost a good thing that I didn't have any previous anything about transportation, because man, you are a glutton for punishment, and it is nonstop. It's 5, it's holidays, it's birthdays, it's bad days, good days, and that's originally where I wanted to go, believe it or not.
Good. What about you, Gloria?
Oh, I think I was thinking about going into education. I had this idea that I wanted to be a college professor. I did it terribly in college. I felt like there was so many more things that could have been learned that seemed more real life. And then I realized, wow, the only way to maybe do this in the future is actually go out and do it in real life. So, but education was definitely something I thought about. Yeah, probably.
Well, just to encourage you, Gloria, my brother was one of the worst all-time students, all the elementary through college, but has found himself in education and has been teacher of the year multiple times. So you never know.
And get sick. Yeah.
It sounds like with RPM, you might just find your platform to continue that education. Well, listen, guys, I just want to thank you both again for allowing us to serve you. I want to wish you the best. Zach, to your point, if you've mastered transportation, you can literally do anything. So I can't wait to see what you guys do in this next chapter of life. And we'd love to support you. So that's going to do it for us in the hot seat. We will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.